Mr. Thrive and Survive has been banging on about the sun and how he thinks it works. He gets it wrong at every turn. He doesn't understand scale. He looks at simple diagrams that were designed to illustrate a specific point and seems to think they're intended to explain everything about the sun and moon. Here's a clip to show you what I mean.
When an eclipse happens, this is what they show us happens right here. All of a sudden we have the top of the sun, rays suddenly come down, not parallel, but strike the earth here and create this shadow. From the bottom of the sun, they come up, strike the earth here. And this is why, I did a video called The Moon is 70 Miles Wide. And it's because during the solar eclipse, the moon's shadow on the earth was only 70 miles wide. And people will say, the partial eclipse, you have to count that too. No, there's no shadow on a partial eclipse. I'm sorry. The light isn't quite as bright, but there's no shadow.
The half-wittery just goes on and on. I think Monty Python's John Cleese put it best.
I think the problem with people like this is that they are so stupid that they have no idea how stupid they are.
Let's watch some more from the Thrivemeister. These are hilarious. I could watch them all day.
And we've had this discussion about how many actual rays of the sun would strike us at 93 million miles if the sun is a ball, and even one quarter of a degree off, it would never strike the earth. I propose that the sun is, if it's 93 million miles away, in their model, this is what we would see. We see the little prominences of little flames or whatever it is that come off the edge, right? We see the entire disk.
Wow, levels of crazy like that don't come along very often. Dave and Justin would be proud. From watching his videos, I think I've managed to figure out the underlying flaw in his beliefs that are the source of all of his mistakes, other than the whole flat earth thing. Specifically, he seems to think that photons only come out perpendicular to the surface of the sun. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth, or ass.
Only the very little teeny part of the sun that faces the earth would ever have those light rays strike the earth. Has to be. If it's up here, it's on an angle going what? Let's see, out that way. It would never strike the earth.
No, you dolt. Think about it. If that's what was happening, the sun would appear as a point source of light. Let's do a quick calculation. I'll just use approximate numbers because, as you'll soon see, exact numbers won't make any real difference. Let's call the radius of the sun 500,000 miles and its distance to the Earth 100 million miles. From this, the distance from the center of the sun to its surface is about 1/200th the distance to the Earth. So, by the law of similar triangles, the amount of the surface of the sun that you would see will be about 1/200th the diameter of the pupils in your eyes. So, if your pupil is about 4 millimeters across, the amount of the surface of the sun that you would see would only be about 0.02 millimeters across. Something that small and that far away will, for all intents and purposes, be a point source. Even if my approximations were out by a factor of 1,000 and we were seeing a patch of sun 20 millimeters across, at that distance it would still be close enough to a point source to be treated as such. Clearly, however, we don't see the sun as a point. It's a disk. So, what's really going on? Well, that's extraordinarily simple. Light comes out from all directions, from all points on the sun. It's really that simple. Let's work out what this would look like. This time, I won't be able to use approximations. I'll need to use actual numbers. The radius of the sun is 695,510 kilometers. The distance to the sun varies from 147.1 to 151.2 million kilometers. So, how much of the sky does the sun cover? That's easily calculated. The inverse sine of the radius over the distance will give you the amount of sky covered from the center of the sun to the outside of the sun. So the total will be just double this, or between 0.524 and 0.542 degrees. This would also mean that shadows would spread by this same angle. For most practical purposes, this can be ignored and light rays can be treated as parallel, but for some things like the eclipses that old Thrivey boy seems to enjoy so much, this needs to be considered in calculations. The amount by which the penumbra would grow is only dependent on the distance from the object casting the shadow, not the size of the object. Similarly, the umbra would shrink by this same amount, half on each side of the object. For an eclipse, either solar or lunar, the moon is between 225,623 and 252,088 miles from Earth. These values are center to center. We're not at the center, so we need to subtract 3,959, the radius of the Earth. This gives distances between 221,664 and 248,129 miles. So, the amount by which the umbra can shrink is between 2,026 and 2,347 miles. In the case of a solar eclipse, since the moon is 2,159 miles in diameter, the maximum size of the area of totality can be as 2,159 minus 2,026, or 133 miles. If the amount by which the umbra shrinks is greater than the diameter of the moon, there won't be a region of totality, and we'll get what's called an annular eclipse. For a lunar eclipse, the diameter of the umbra would be the diameter of the Earth minus these values, or between 5,570 and 5,891 miles. These values are much larger than the size of the moon, which is why the entire moon is covered during a lunar eclipse. So, Thrivey boy, I hope this clears up some of your confusion. I know there's a hell of a lot more confusion in your head than can possibly be corrected in one video, but I hope this helps a little. As always, if you liked this video, click the like button. If you didn't, don't.